Alright, we're live. So I'm gonna try and do this first video in front of the camera. I don't usually do this kind of video. I actually never done this kind of video before, so bear with me, it's the first time. Get some notes here to try and get through this, otherwise I will forget everything I need to say. I got a pretty short memory. So this is gonna be a favorite 10 film camera list. And I did this one because, or I make this one now because when I go to YouTube, I think one of the favorite things I like to do is watching other photographers go through their personal favorite gear. And especially film cameras, since I shoot a lot of film nowadays. And also especially the vintage film cameras, for many different reasons. So this is gonna be in my kitchen, as you see, so it's not a nice studio and I don't have a lot of nice gear or equipment to record this. I only have my external mic and I use the webcam on the Mac, so hopefully the quality will be alright. I think the sound is maybe the most important thing anyway, so that you hear what I'm saying. Except for the accent, of course, I can't do much about that. But what's this list gonna be and how I'm gonna go about it? It's gonna be 10 different cameras up to this date, as of 2022. This list pretty much changes all the time for me, but these are the 10 that I sort of narrowed down, and it wasn't easy. I sat down yesterday and really collected all the cameras that I got now at the moment. As a camera hoarder, you know, you get a lot of cameras, so I'm trying to narrow down the list. It's pretty difficult, actually. It's gonna be a mix of personal preference, of course. A lot has to do with looks and aesthetics when it comes to film cameras, for me anyway. So, and also, of course, functionality and build, and got to do with how practical they are using, of course. So it's gonna be a mix of all those things, basically. Also be a mix between medium format cameras and 135 film cameras. So a little bit of everything, basically. After going through those 10 favorite film cameras, I'd love to do a few honorable mentions as well. Cameras I acquired over the years for different reasons, that will stay on there for emotional value, maybe more than being my favorite camera to use. So this list will really be about the 10 favorite film cameras that I use a lot, or use as much as I have time to. And also, yeah, being practical enough to use every day for different reasons. So let's start with the list then. Let's begin with number 10. And the camera that's taken the 10th place on my list is gonna be the Nikon L35 AF2 camera. A very small point and shoot camera. Was made in the 80s by Nikon. Was the first ever autofocus in a compact camera from them. It's got auto metering, auto aperture control, and it's got a pop-up flash built in. It's got a 2.8 lens, which is pretty great, to be honest. You get film speeds up to 1000, so it's pretty good. I believe the difference in the earlier version, AF1, they only had film speed up to 400. I might be mistaken, but I think that's right. And the overall aesthetics of the camera, I mean, it's built of plastic. Get some metal here on the bottom plate, I think, but otherwise it's built pretty much out of plastic. You get a pop-up flash here. Get the film hatch here, where you load the film or take the film out. If you want to rewind the film, it's done by a 2-button combination here at the bottom that you press when you're done with your frames. It takes 2 AA batteries, so the battery compartment is down here on the bottom. you get the viewfinder and your shutter button there. So nothing special or hard. The functionality of the camera is pretty easy as well. I mean, everything is pretty much automatic with it. When you focus with the camera, you have a distance scale at the bottom that you'll see in the viewfinder. And you get a mountain for long distance shots. You get a group of people in the middle that will tell you if you focus on them. And then if you want to take a portrait or a close-up shot, you get a person to the left that you will see. So that's handled pretty much automatically as well, very easily. And it's supposed to take like 100 shots, I think, with those 2 AA batteries, which is quite nice. So that's pretty much how you use this camera. So I'm gonna go through some pros and cons with this camera then, and why it deserves my number 10th place. And I think the first thing is, of course, if you want a point and shoot camera, you need something quite small that will sort of fit in a jacket pocket. And that fit the bill, I think. It's pretty much goes down into my jackets or a smaller bag, which is very nice. It's built pretty solid. I mean, it's plastic, but it feels safe dropping it. Even, I think I would say, doesn't scratch easily. I got a couple of scratches here after using it for a while. And the grip is actually quite nice. It's got some sort of rubber here on the side here, which is etched out a bit like this to fit your hand nicely. So usually I grab the camera in the strap like this, and I will hold the camera like this walking around, which is very nice. So you feel safe using it without dropping it, I think. It's safe to say. The lens, very, very good. I think it's pretty sharp. You can read up on it on the internet and a lot of reviews and so on. And I think from what I've seen, it's a great lens. You do have a flash. It's not the greatest flash, but it never is on those kind of compact. I haven't used one single point and shoot that I think will sort of blend the flash. Well, some of the newer digital cameras, like the Fuji X series, I think, has done a nice job doing that. Sort of with a leaf shutter, blend the flash nicely with the environment. But this is pretty 80s looking, which I suppose makes it a little bit more fun as well. It's a nice party camera that way. You can bring it to a party in darkness and just shoot away, which is nice. And then to my cons then. Well, like with any point and shoot, with some electronics inside, it's bound to break at some point, which is a known problem with all the point and shoot cameras. Can't get around that. It's not that expensive to buy. I bought it from a pretty nice camera firm here in Sweden for around 150 euros. So it's not that expensive to buy. It usually goes for around that here in Sweden. So if it breaks, I've seen many out there, and they're usually in quite good condition. I will say that the battery door here is very flimsy, and you will see that and hear that in many other reviews over YouTube as well, and on forums to discuss that problem. So, and I mean, it's not. I'm not sure if you can even fix this camera anywhere with the electronics and everything. So, if it breaks, just buy a new one. If you have a chance, buy a few of them, so you will have one spare if this one breaks. So that's pretty much it for the Nikon L35 AF2 camera. Very nice point and shoot camera, and I think if this one breaks, I will definitely buy another one if I get the chance. So, on to place 9 on my list for 10 favorite film cameras. This next one is also a compact camera, and it holds a pretty special place in my heart as well. I actually got this camera twice now. I sold the first copy to a guy from Switzerland, I remember. And it was after this camera for its spectacular lens, as well as I was. It's the 35 RD, Olympus 35 RD. And RD stands for rangefinder deluxe. Back then in the 70s when it was produced, actually 1975, Olympus had some pretty stiff competition with the Nikon and Leica and Minolta, and especially in the rangefinder market for a fixed 40mm lens. So they thought they would make a very special version of this series of Olympus. I think it was a successor to the SP, Olympus SP, back in those days, which was also a very good camera. So they made this one and thrown everything, all the resources and everything into this lens and produced this very nice Suico 40mm f1.7 lens, which is very good, very spectacular, sharp lens. Creates some very nice photos. But apparently it didn't go as well as they thought in the beginning, so not many were produced actually. And so it's pretty rare, a rare model to find. So after I sold mine, I sort of regretted it right away, and I sold it back then to finance some other stuff. And I searched for another copy in good condition, and I finally found this one. So I'm gonna hold on to this one for a long while, or at least until it stopped working. So some specifications of this camera. It's a Suico 40mm lens, f1.7 lens, as I told you. The lens is single coated, which means that it's not gonna be as contrasty as a lot of other multi-coated lenses out there. And that means that it's tend to flare a little bit easier in backlit situations and in those kind of lighting situations, which to my eyes actually is more pleasing in the photos, a more pleasing look. And I believe it's one of the reasons that you shoot with film and these kind of vintage older cameras. So to my eyes, that's actually a pro, not a con. You can go up to 800 ASA or ISO with the camera. It takes LR44 batteries, which are the newer batteries. It also takes older batteries, but they are harder to find, and also they're not very good for the environment. So it's good that you can use those newer batteries. If you use the newer batteries, though, you'll have to remember that in some cases it will overexpose a little bit, so you might have to compensate a bit for that. It's a camera with shutter auto priority mode, which means that if you put the aperture ring to A here, you just have to set the shutter speed on the shutter speed ring, and the camera will take care of the aperture for you. It will show you a little lever in the light meter that will show you which aperture that the camera uses, which is very nice. But you can also use it in manual mode, which is very good. So you can choose either or, which is a nice feature, I think. The close focus is 0.85 meters, which is not very good. So you can use it very close to subjects, like a close portrait or something like that. So it's better for longer distance shots. So let's go into some pros and cons of this camera and why it takes number 9 on my 10 favorite cameras list. I would say the number 1 pro is the lens, for sure. It's got a very, very special lens to me, and it's probably one of the better lenses I have seen on a compact camera. And I mean, I'm not saying anything special there. You can see a lot of reviews on the internet about it, a lot of videos about the lens. But I can say that after I got rid of the first camera, I was looking through some of the photos I had taken with this camera, and they just had a special look to them that made me regret selling it even more. And I knew I was gonna search for another one because it's just such a great tool that you know that you can produce those kinds of photos with. So that's probably the number 1 pro for me. gives a very nice vintage look, the photos that I told you. It's a very small camera. I mean, it's the perfect size, really. Very well built, feels good in the hands. Has that sort of 70s look that a lot of people like in a vintage camera. I think of all those Olympus 40mm fixed lens cameras, or all those in this kind of category, I think this is the nicest one. I also had the RC before, and it was a good camera, but first of all, the lens on this one is better. And also thought that like the advanced lever, for example, was a bit more flimsy, didn't feel as good. So in my mind, this is the best version of those cameras for me. The leaf shutter makes it very silent, so when you're out on the street shooting, it's a very good camera for that. Not a lot of people notice you when you're around shooting with this camera. Also, it's just doesn't look like a huge camera, or like when you're going around with those huge cameras. It looks very neat, and if anything, people comes up to you and ask you about the camera and give some compliment about the looks of it instead, which is always a great thing when you're out shooting. It's a conversation piece instead of people getting angry when you shoot them, which is nice. Yeah, it's a second one I own, so that must mean it's a camera that I like a lot. It's also nice to be able to choose between manual and automatic mode, I think. It seems to eat a lot of batteries when in an auto mode, so what I usually do is put it in manual anyway. But it's nice to be able to have that auto mode and just shoot away if you want some relaxing shooting. And maybe the most important pro of all is that it makes you inspired. Just looking at the photos makes you want to pick it up again and go out shoot with it. And after all, that's the most important feature of any camera, I feel like. So much is made into what specifications the camera has, and all that stuff that you want to escape from the digital side of photography, I think is true with this camera. It just makes you want to pick it up and go out to shoot. So that's also very important for me. Go to some cons of this camera. There are not many, to be honest. Some people I read doesn't like the advanced lever. They feel it doesn't give them the same feedback as some other models, some other cameras. I can agree with that. It feels a little bit light, but it's nothing that would make me not get the camera. If you know what I mean. Also, one major con, I didn't have this problem with either of this camera, but I heard that you can get some oil getting into the aperture blades, and that you can get sticky aperture blades. So that's a major con. If you get that, you will have to CLA the camera and send it in somewhere. I don't think it's a cheap thing to get repaired either, if I'm gonna be honest. But so make sure that if you get this camera, try to find a copy with not have sticky shutter blades. Would be my biggest tip. So I had luck getting two cameras with that didn't have that problem, or they had been CLA'd, I'm not sure, but so far this is good. What else? Well, oh yeah, about the auto priority thing. When you set the aperture ring to A and you then choose the shutter speed ring, the shutter speed, and it will take care of the aperture for you. That also means that if you have the wrong exposure, the camera lets you know that you have the wrong exposure. You won't be able to take the photo. And that can be quite annoying if you're in a situation and you need to press the shutter quickly and it feels like it's too dark or and so on, so forth. It won't be able to take the picture. So that's can be a major con in some situation. But as long as you're aware of that, you can always put it into manual if you're in a situation with tough lighting to escape that problem. So it's not a big problem either, to be honest. Other than that, I don't think anything else needs to be said about the cons of this camera. So that's the Olympus 35 RD. Really recommend this camera as a quick shooter and a compact camera to have with you on your street shooting or just to shoot your kids or the family with. Excellent choice. So, on to the next. Number 8 this time on my list of 10 favorite film cameras. This one is the Konica Auto S3. Very good looking camera in my opinion. Got a lot of similarities to the RD that I just showed you actually. It was also made in the 70s. It was made from 73 to 77. So it made somewhat in the same time periods as a RD. It's got a hexagon 38mm f1.8 lens. So a little bit wider than most of those other 40mm fixed rangefinders of that area, or that era. Some people actually suggest that this camera, the Konica Auto S3, is one, if not the best rangefinder, compact rangefinder of the 70s. So that's quite a bold statement that they make. But I'm inclined to agree, actually. I think it's up there, if not the best. The lens itself got 6 elements, like the RD, but in 4 groups. It was a successor to the popular C35 model. It's got a very good ability to use flash as well. It's got some sort of synchronization system that finds the guide number and the focus distance. Something I'm not very good to explain the technical details of it, but I know it's very good if you use it as a fill flash, to be able to use fill flash. It looks very natural, something a lot of other cameras have difficult to do. I think it was only this camera that they made such a system. It's got up to 800 ASA, just like the RD. It got shutter speed from 1.8 to 1.500. You also get an exposure lock if you press the shutter halfway. The batteries that it uses, those 1.35 mercury batteries, which is not very good for the environments that I spoke about when I talked about the RD. But you can also use those hearing aid batteries, the 1.45 Sync Air batteries, the small ones. So that's good that you can use those newer batteries. The close focus is 90 centimeters. So if we go into some of the aesthetics of the camera and the functionality, hold it up for you so you can see what it looks like. Took the half case off. It's a pretty good looking camera. It's a mix between plastic and metal, I think. Like the advanced lever here is pretty plasticky. Also the battery door there is there. It's very plasticky. I'll go into that later on. You got a focus tab here, which will make you focus the rangefinder patch. Pretty short focus throw, which is nice. You got the shutter ring here, much like the RD. So this camera works with that chooses your aperture automatically when you choose the shutter speed, much like the RD as well. The only problem is that it's only half manual, so that's a con for many, but I will get into that later. So if your battery don't work, you don't have any batteries, it will stay wide open all the time. So it works, but you won't be able to choose aperture. Just have to stay on 1.8. But if you have the batteries, it will choose the aperture for you, and you just choose the shutter speed manually. Other than that, I don't think it's much else to show you. You get the film back here. You open it up with a rewind lever like that. It's very common. The viewfinder, I think, looks very similar to the RD as well. Very small focus patch, but it seems to work, and it's quite visible in a lot of different lighting situations, I've noticed. Yeah, nothing special there. Yeah, you get the self timer there that I never use. You get the ASA lever here, exactly like the RD as well. Yeah, looks like a pretty nice camera overall, I think. Pros. So let's go into the pros of this camera. And it's gonna feel like I'm repeating myself, which I'm kinda am. But again, you choose this camera for the lens, or I choose this camera for the lens. You can make a lot of comparisons to the Olympus RD about the lens and about the camera itself, I think. The cameras that were produced in this era, like the Highmatic, Minolta Highmatic, and the Canonet G3 QL17, I think it's called, also have some comparisons that you can draw to this one. But I think out of all those cameras, I used to have the Highmatic as well. I think this one has the sharpest lens. And if I'm gonna make a comparison to the Olympus RD and why I choose this one at spot number 8 instead of 9, it will be that this one is perfect for street shooting, according to me. Because it's sharper and you have a lot more details, which I feel, especially when you use film, it gives a vintage look, but not in the same way as the RD. This is perfect for street shooting. Also, the color of the body, it lends itself very well to street shooting. Doesn't look as it looks a bit more inconspicuous, if that's the word. People don't take notice to this camera as much as to the RD. I tend to find that silver-bodied cameras, usually that's a camera you see from the start, looks elegant, and you just want to have it. Sort of like a nice bag or something like that. Looks like a jewelry a little bit more. This is a camera that it's very stealthy. It's got this leaf shutter as well, so it's very, very silent. And also with that automatic mode it got, and the exposure lock, half pressed down and everything, it's just a very quick camera to have with you. And you know it will produce very, very good pictures. So I think overall that's, and also the focus tab is very nice. Like with some of the Leica lenses and so on, you have the very short focus throw on this one. So it's very quick to focus with. And it's a very good street camera, very good street shooter. It's pretty expensive nowadays, so I would say that's a con with the camera. And also if we go into the cons right away, to get that over with. Also, if you don't have the batteries, that's not very good. You can put it in manual mode and just shoot away. You will shoot wide open, as I told you. That's a con, I suppose. So just make sure you have a good amount of batteries with you. And also, that's also one of the cons, that it draws battery all the time. So you have to, I'm using the half case and the cover for it. And if you don't have that, it will keep drawing battery life all the time. So and the batteries will run out. So make sure to store it in a cupboard or in the case if you're not using it. But I believe that's it. I don't have too much more to say about this camera, but it's I really recommend this one. And if you want me to recommend one camera over as a compact camera, I think I would recommend this one over the RD as well. But they're rare these days as well, and to find a good copy as well is pretty hard. And they command a pretty hefty price tag nowadays. So yeah, my number 8, Konica Auto S3. Get it.